Thank you so much. Great to be home at Landmark. Thank you, Mr. President, Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, Landmark students, alumni, parents, friends, family. It's an honor to be here with you to celebrate 30 years and to celebrate what I just went through in my wildest dreams when we all stood here 30 years ago and launched this extraordinary journey. I did not think we'd be standing here today, having made the progress that we have. And the crown jewel is the McFarlane Center. Thank you, McFarlanes. Thank you, family. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole said to me, I'd be willing to be your speechwriter. She probably knew it was coming. And I said, I'm dyslexic. I don't write speeches. My greatest fear in the world is to have to read a speech. Does anyone share that fear here? That's right. So, my sympathies, but I don't. I'll do it off the top of my head as I always do. Listen, I got to tell you why this is such a powerful moment for Landmark and such a powerful moment for me. 30 years ago, it was inconceivable that we would be having this celebration today. I'm going to share with you how unlikely this was. I credit my service to Vermont as governor to Landmark College. And I'll tell you why. I graduated from college. I came back to Vermont to build 2 businesses here, as I hope all of you will do when you graduate, because we need you. 3rd lowest unemployment rate in America, by the way. Lowest unemployment rate this side of the Mississippi. We need all the workers we can find. And I was doing my thing, running the business and doing all the things you should do as a young person. I think I was 24, 25. And it was proposed that the former bankrupt Wyndham College be converted to a federal maximum security prison. That's right. It had sat vacant for years. The roofs, the flat roofs were leaking. It was a mess. We got Senator Leahy to convince the Federal Bureau of Prisons to do something never done before. Because a lot of us didn't think that the best future for our community was to be a federal prison town. So we got them to say, listen, we do town meetings in Vermont, and we'll do a meeting, we'll do a vote. And if the community wants you, you come, and if they don't, you won't. And the Federal Bureau of Prisons says, no problem. The 3-person, I should say 3-men, Board of Selectmen at the time, all wanted the prison. They'd been flown down to Allentown to the federal prison there. They'd been wined and dined. They didn't feed them the prison food. I don't know what they fed them, but they came back and they thought it was a great idea. So we did a vote, and 90% of the folks at Putney said no. And they did not come. So then someone said, but if we don't get someone on that Board of Select people who doesn't want a federal prison, they'll just come back next year and they'll be smart enough not to do a vote. So they nominated me to run against the guy that was up, and I did. And I knocked on doors, and I won. And I promised at the time that I would do everything I could to bring an educational institution to this vacant and leaking campus. And this is what happened. So, students of Landmark, I got to explain something to you. There was no internet. We read newspapers. So I was reading the Boston Globe one day, and I pick it up, and it literally, there was an article about Landmark School in Price Crossing, Massachusetts, a school for dyslexics, which I had never heard of, but I am dyslexic, so it piqued my interest. And it said that this guy down there, Dr. Charles Drake, wanted to start the first college in the nation for students who learn differently. And I said, wow, we got to do this. Now at the time, John Baggy, I don't know if John Baggy's here, but John Baggy here? John Baggy taught here many years anyway. He was the town manager. Well, I had an old Toyota. We convinced the Board of Trustees of Landmark School to listen to our pitch. And I got to tell you how long ago this was. It was a bunch of old white guys falling asleep. The only people who paid attention to us were Chad Drake and a young, handsome entrepreneur named Chuck Scrowk. Everyone else slept through our presentation. So we made the pitch. The problem was that the land had been sold by the Department of Education to a junk bond dealer in New York who'd bought it, and you could not walk between the buildings of this campus that were controlled by the Department of Education in Washington without going across his land. So you got to know this part of the story, and I thought about this when I looked at the Nicole Center today. The reason that we were designed by Edward Durrell Stone and that we have flat roofs is that this campus was designed for places that thrive in weather for flat roofs. It was designed for Arizona, Prescott University by Edward Durrell Stone College. So the deal was, when you could go to war in Vietnam or go to college, a lot of young Americans, young men, decided they were going to go to college. So an explosion of universities happened. Windham was a little college, downtown Putney, desperately needed a campus. Someone on the board said to the Windham trustees, get a plan down to the Department of Education, you can get the money from Lyndon Baines Johnson to build a new campus. They were exploding. They got the Department of Buildings to draw out a plan. They sent it down to the Department of Education, called up and said, how does it look? And the Department of Education said, are you kidding me? You can't get from the, you don't have stairs. You can't get between the floors. There's no way to move up and down in the building. Who drew this thing? So the board freaked out. They had 2 weeks. They called, someone knew Edward Durrell Stone. And Edward Durrell Stone said, I got a plan. It's designed for Arizona, send it down. They did, they approved it, and that's how we got the flat-roofed Arizona campus here. So then a bunch of us, Earl Stockwell ran Putney Paper, myself, Ed Dodd, George Heller, Chris Osgood's father-in-law, we all got together and we bought the bonds from the junk bond dealer without telling him about Landmark, because he would have fleeced them. We sold it to Landmark for the price that we paid for them. Landmark bought the buildings from the Department of Education, and Landmark College was begun. So you got to understand why I was so pumped up. For those of you that struggled in school before you got here, for those of you that lost your self-esteem by going to school, for those of you that doubted your ability to succeed, I am in your club. I had a terrible time learning how to read. And I got to tell you, when I was a kid in Vermont, there were no IEPs, there was no special education, there was no help outside of the single teacher at the front of the class and a blackboard. And I want to tell you this part of the story. In second grade, I got called into the principal's office. I don't need to tell Landmark students that we sometimes spend a lot of time in principal's offices as kids. But what I couldn't figure out the day I got called in was what I had done wrong, because I hadn't done anything wrong yet. So I get called in, and my mom and dad are sitting in there with the principal. Now you can imagine, second grade, some of you have had experiences like this, I'm sure. My eyes were as big as saucers. I couldn't figure out why my parents are there. I knew this was the big deal, and I sat and listened. And this is how we did learning challenges in those years. They sat and spoke as if I was not in the room, but they wanted me to hear it. And the principal said to my parents, there's something wrong with Peter. We can't teach him with all of our efforts how to read. He's not going to go to college. He's not going to have a professional career, but we'll do the best that we can. It was a great day. And they sent me back to class. I had a single teacher. Her name was Claire Oglesby. Many of you probably knew her. She came up to me after that experience, several weeks later, and she said, Peter, if you're willing, I'll take you home at the end of school She had a log cabin up on Windmill Hill Road in Westminster West where she lived with her teacher husband, Matt. I just want to assure the students here that I'm old, but not everybody lived in log cabins then, but she did. And she would literally load me into her Willys Jeep after school and drive me to her log cabin, and we'd sit around her wood stove in the wintertime, on the lawn in the summertime. It took her a year, but she taught me how to read. She taught me how to read. And I got to tell you something. It really helps if you're going to be a governor to read. Now, if you talk to some of the governors around the country, you'll wonder whether they can read or not, but it is a big help. But here's my point. This is why I'm so excited to be here for this 30th celebration, and so excited to be here for every single student that is grinding it out here right now for a bright future. This is why. Because I had a single bright light in my life that day that Claire decided to take me home. I found someone who believed in me. I found someone who saw something that other people did not see. And that is what Landmark College intends to be. That's why we're here today. A point of light. To give folks a future that they wouldn't have had. An opportunity that would not have otherwise happened. A place to reassure and make you learn in ways that others can't, because you're the brightest star in the room. And I can tell you this, I would not be an effective governor if I did not learn differently. Full stop. Why? Because governors actually have to do things. We actually have to make things happen. We have to make change. We have to be creative. We've got to beat the other folks to the end of the line to get it done. And every day that you've been in school, you've had to figure out what comes out at the end of the tunnel before you go into it. Lazy learners don't have to do that. So I say to each and every one of you as we celebrate this 30th anniversary, this institution understands that you have a bright future, that you'll be an extraordinary leader in whatever you choose, that the fact that you fought twice or 3 times or 10 times or 1,000 times harder than the person next to you to get to the same place is what empowers you to be the best leader that we can possibly find. So I want you to be here 30 years from now to spread the word about this organization and this institution. This place is different than any other learning establishment for college in the world. It is, because everybody gets it and we know how to get it done.